Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Grow podcast from Interact. Today, I'll be hosting. I'm Josh. I'm co-founder at Interact, and I am joined by Jesy, Damaris, and Jackie. Hey, everybody. Thanks for jumping on today.
Hello, hello.
For having us.
So today, we have an interesting concept that was Jessamyn's idea, where we're going to talk about the pros and cons of bootstrapping. So for reference, bootstrapping means we don't have external funding at Interact, which is extremely rare in the software world. Like almost every software you use probably has external funding, and there's pros and cons to it. So, I've done a bunch of interviews about this, so I'm not going to be talking much today. I'm more curious about the experience from the three of you about what it's like to be here versus being at larger organizations or big companies or funded companies. I mean, even large organizations were probably funded at some point. So we can jump right in. The first question that I have is, what is unique about being at a bootstrap company as compared to your other experiences? And anybody can jump in.
I guess I'll start.
I would
say,
go
girl. Okay. I was going to say, let's start with the fact that we are all in different departments. And here we are sitting on a podcast with our CEO. Like, I would say that would never have happened at my previous roles. Just doing things like this is probably a perfect example that this would never happen in a bigger, different type of company. And we're doing it here, and we do it every week.
Yeah, and I think that's just a specific example of what I was going to say is the day-to-day is unique because like sometimes we literally wake up and there's like a message like, hey, everybody, this is totally going to change. Like Josh, you just said before, right? Like everybody jump onto Interact AI because we're going to test this thing out. And so every day can be different because we're in control of what happens to the business, right? Like we all get to make the decisions of what's going to happen. There aren't people that we have to answer to, or goals that we have to, or like quotas, right? That we have to, KPI is the big word in corporate, that we have to achieve. So it's just like, what do we need to do today that's going to be the best for our business and for our customers? And that changes every day.
Yeah, I mean, I can probably talk about this all day for everybody here and there, but for me personally, coming from a very different role from in the bigger, larger industries, right? I moved now to an individual role, contributor role, an IC role versus that being different before. The biggest takeaway so far has just been being able to have a conversation with our CEO, Josh, just being very honest and upfront about certain things that maybe I feel very strongly about, and actually him being open to the feedback and understanding my perspective versus I feel like in other settings, it would probably be, oh yeah, pushback, maybe next quarter. I don't know. We'll see. Let me put it down the pipeline. I don't know if this is a good idea. So that it has been a huge, huge, huge difference. And I appreciate that so much. But I'll just stick to one since we just got started and then we can continue.
I was also going to say that I feel like at my last job, I was doing the same thing for 3 years. And the goal was to increase my output or do it faster or do it better. But I was working on the same thing for those 3 years. And it was just, can I do more in the time that I'm working? And here it's like we get to work on different things all the time and optimize them a little and then see, are they actually working, and make a choice if we're going to move forward with it. And at a bigger company, they're less likely to make these jumps or switches and actually pull this like trigger and be like, this isn't working, let's switch. They'll keep pushing it because it's what they've always done. And here we definitely don't do that. If it's not working, we're like, okay, let's try something new.
Yeah. Can I just add like the uniqueness of my role specifically? And I guess like, and what I did before, I worked at a big corporate company before. And so I was hired for a specific job on a specific team in a specific department, right? And then after a couple years, just like Jesy doing the same thing, I got bored. I was ready to try something else. So I had to apply to, I worked for the company, but I had to apply to a different role, like 3 interviews of people who already knew me and who knew my bosses, right? I had to apply to that job. But and if you wanted to move around, if you want to move up, right? Like you're constantly reapplying to the same company. And here at Interact, I was hired for, I don't even know what the official role title was. I still don't even know sometimes what to call myself because my role has changed so much since I started. So I like started with one-on-one, I guess you could call it like, I don't know, one-on-one coaching with people specifically in health and wellness. That lasted, I don't know, maybe 3, 4, 5, 6 months. Then I went into group coaching because it was just a better thing to do. We could help more people that way. Then I built a community. And then we did strategy calls, sort of back to the one-on-one. Then I was moved into the affiliate program. And I don't mean like I was moved around like unwillingly. This was so exciting for me because it was not boring. It was constantly me challenging myself, figuring new things out. But I guess that's the unique part of working in a company like this, is that you don't have to apply for and be accepted into a new role or be able to try something new. You're just given the opportunity to do so. So I absolutely love that part of it about it.
It's interesting hearing you all talk about that. My next follow-up question that's not scripted is, do you think that this type of environment is good for like any person, like most people, or do you think it's a particular type of person that enjoys being in this environment? Because what I'm hearing you all say is like, you know, things that change a lot. You do have a lot of autonomy, but I guess the potential negative of that is like, you know, to like what Damaris was saying, like you have to also speak up, right? Which is not necessarily something people might want to do. So do you think that it's kind of like a, I don't know, chicken and egg thing where it's like one comes before the other, you know, you are the type of person that's best suited for this environment? Or do you think that this is like what most people would want, or something in between, or any of the above?
Ooh, that's an interesting question. I can start that off, if you guys are okay with that, for everybody hearing out there. I don't believe that just anybody can do this type of role. It's a very specific person. And the reason I say that is because I think you have to be sort of, in my perspective, sort of structured and proactive in a lot of different things, and build a schedule out for you. Because if you're coming from an environment that, you know, you're micromanaged, or you have a certain structure of how things run every single day, or you're based off a schedule, you know, where you have your lunch breaks, time to clock out sort of situation, this may not be a good fit for you, right? It just depends. There's certain what we call actionable items in my old industry where you have to do certain things here at your job, but you have the autonomy to do so, right? What works for your schedule, as long as you get this done, make it fit while you're multitasking and doing other things. And some personalities are not very good with multitasking. Maybe they don't have direction, right? So that's sort of my take on it, but I don't know what everybody else thinks.
Yeah, I would totally agree. I think there's a certain comfortability that comes with knowing what you're waking up to, or like coming into work to face every single day, right? Funny story. I used to work with a girl who was so good at her job, and like she could manipulate the system to show that she was hitting these KPIs, that she would literally come to work and do her homework. She wouldn't work. Like the system was showing that she was like a top performer. She literally won an award at the end of the year. And we all knew she came into work every single day, and she would work on, not all day, but like for a good chunk of the day, she would do her homework because her job got so easy for her that she had the time to do that, which good for her, right? But that's just what I mean. Like if that's what you're looking for in a job, of like, let me just get this thing done as quickly as possible so that I can go, I don't know, work on this other stuff that I want to do, then no, this job here in startups is not for you. You want the comfortability of knowing what you're up against every day, and you don't have that here because things change so frequently. So I think there's a glamour to the fact that, we are sort of like running our own departments and doing our own things, and we're autonomous in our role and making our own decisions. That's definitely glamorous, but it's not for everybody. And I think the wrong people that get into this will quickly find that out and want to go back to the comfortable way of knowing what their day-to-day looks like, maybe being advised on what to do. Maybe I think there are definitely people out there that like being micromanaged. And so this is not the type of role for them.
I would say for me, I got out of college, got my first job. And after that, I was there for like 3 years. Then I came to Interact. And as usually the youngest or one of the younger employees in a place, at first when I joined Interact, I didn't feel like I had the confidence to like make the calls that people were telling me, like, you own this. And in the beginning, I was always like unsure, and I was like, I'm not equipped to do this. I don't know if I'm making the right decision, but they're saying it's fine. Like, when you're used to always being like told what's right and what's wrong and like what to do and how to do it, moving into that, I think builds so much confidence. So while I may not have started out as that type of employee that could do it, feel like I've built up so much confidence in joining a team like this, that you can do this stuff.
Yeah, 100%. I completely agree with that, Jesy.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. I mean, I think that the quote that comes to mind as you're saying that is, the worst decision is no decision. And so that's really cool to hear. The thought that is in my head as you all are answering that question is, what do you think makes work like meaningful or enjoyable or fulfilling? Because I feel like what I'm hearing from you all is like reasons why, it is enjoyable. So I guess if we could, double click on that, as they like to say, like what is it that makes work enjoyable for in your definition?
For
Go, Jack.
For me, it's the people. And in this specific role, like working with Interact customers, I get to meet people who started businesses that I never even would have thought could be a business, right? Like they are doing the coolest things to help people in all different kinds of ways that you would never expect. Like Jesy got this request from the Interact AI, but it was like backyard chickens, like raising your own chickens. Like who would have thought that, I mean, yes, now that I'm thinking about it, right? Like, of course that's a business because people raise chickens and they grow eggs and they eat the meat or whatever else you need chickens for. But I mean, and then there's just people in wellness, and there was somebody, her name is Janine. She's been to tons of office hours where she helps, I don't even know how to say this, but basically an ovary can twist inside of you, and that's the thing that causes like all of these other ailments or like things that could go wrong. Pain, there's the thing. Anyways, that's the thing that can cause like all of these other ailments that you've been going to doctors for years trying to figure out and to solve. And she knows that it's because of this one thing, because it's something that happened to her, and then she turned it into an entire business. So for me, it's getting to meet the people that use our tool and hearing and seeing what they do with quizzes, but just within their own business. And I guess I'm a people person, so being able to help somebody else is just the most rewarding thing out there, I think, for me.
Yeah, I was going to add in, I think getting to work one-on-one with customers in like whatever department you're in here is so cool. Like, and back to what Jackie said, getting the chance to help people and help people that are essentially helping other people, whether it's a product or service they provide, like it's like unmatched.
Yeah. I guess I see it in two different ways. Now I'm going to get all complex with it for all of you guys hear me. My apologies, but I want to sort of break it down as an employee and then as my role, right? Those are two different things for me. I think the reason that I find Interact, like I'm excited to come to work, I want to do my best, I try to be super proactive, is one, I do feel appreciated as an employee. I think that Josh, Matt, Annie, everybody that's involved in creating what you guys have created does a great job making us feel like we're important, like you appreciate us, that our input is important. That was huge for me, coming from the environment that I came from. And also just the support. I mean, shout out to Jared. He's not on this podcast, but I mean, he helped me tremendously get on board, switching industries, and just everybody that I reached out to, Jackie, Jesy, everybody was super helpful. They just opened the doors and welcoming me in, and they were like, what do you want to learn? I'll teach you, and that's like amazing, amazing, amazing. In my role, I think it goes back to customer service, right? I mean, if you genuinely like helping people, you sort of become interested in, what do you like to do? What do you do? What's your business? Like, let me help you. Let's try to figure out a way. Or it just becomes this sort of community in a way, and you become, I don't want to say entranced by it, but you do really like it, you enjoy it. So that's kind of my take on it.
I really like that you separated that, Damaris. I just want to add another thing I think that brings fulfillment in this type of role is that you are responsible for figuring out your own challenges, right? So like, Josh, when you were like, okay, we're going to build a community. I never built a community before. So like getting the opportunity to just do that on my own and meet new people who have, and ask questions to people that have already built communities and best practices, and meeting everybody at the team on Circle, and like customers of Circle in their own community. It's really fulfilling to be given a project that you know nothing about, and then be able to, on your own, you get the space to figure it out and then turn it into actually something. So I think that's another piece of this job that you don't get elsewhere, because you're sort of, you can be, I mean, like Damaris said, the whole team is there to support you. So if you ever need anything, just reach out and you'll get the help that you need. But also you get to sort of like create these little babies all the time of the different projects that you create. And I really enjoy the challenges that come with that, and the learning opportunities and the growth that comes with all of that.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, I think all of you are quite good at that. And I think it's part of, it's part of what we look for when we're bringing people on too, is like just the ability to take anything and go like do some research on it, figure it out, and see how it goes. So that's part of, I think, what makes our team tick. And I agree, we have just the best people across the board, right? I'll shout out Jared as well. Like, he helps me with stuff. All the engineers help me with stuff. Like, all of you help me with, like, everybody helps everybody. And I think that's kind of the part of what I think makes it really enjoyable to come in. You're not gonna like ask somebody for something and they're like, oh, it's not part of my KPI, so I'm not doing that.
Yes.
Just like, it's the worst.
That is
but
so
I think
true.
also the fact that we also get to all be virtual, right? Like, we're all from different places and different backgrounds. When you do have a question, or you want to like run an idea by somebody, you can get a very different perspective that you might not otherwise get, right? Like when I was living in Boston before, everybody was living in Boston. So like we were all in the same environment all of the time, but you guys are on the other side of the country, right? I remember at our first offsite, I think I said in-ground pools, and everybody was like, what are you talking about? What is that? And so it's just like, it's really fun to get to meet people from different experiences, backgrounds, but also I think that's so good for business, because we're not one-minded. We're looking at things from all different angles, all different perspectives, and that's what our customers need. So I think that's another really fun part of it. And that's another part of what makes the team so awesome, is that we can connect like we do, but we're also so different from each other at the same time.
Which I think it's so funny that there's like times where something will come up that I need to handle, and I think to myself, like, this is not something that I want to do, but obviously I'm going to do it. But I'm like, wow, who would love to do this is Jackie. Like, Jackie would have a ball doing this. And occasionally I'm like, you know what? Let's see if she's available and she does want to do it, and see if there's anything I can take off her plate, which I think
like editing.
Oh my
like,
God.
you want to go on a podcast, Jackie? There you go.
Yeah, that's very true. You just brought me to an example that happened a few weeks ago. I think, by the way, for those listening, I'm the one that helps you guys in support and chat all day long. So hi, for everybody that's listening out there. There's times where there's certain questions that I don't fully understand that are super techy, right? So usually my go-to is, hey, Jared. Jerry's another team member on the Interact team, he's great at everything that he does. He happened to be off this day. So I was like, who can I reach out? I reached out to Graham, which is one of our developers. I mean, in what other company would you be like, hey, can I speak to the developer so you can like sort of tell me what's going on with this question? That's like unheard of. So just things like that make it so much easier to do our job here. So just a quick example.
Yeah, no corporate roadblocks of like, let me roll that up and see if I can do that. So I think that's really cool. And then the other thread that I wanted to follow up on from what you guys were saying about what makes the work enjoyable is working with the clients. I echo what everybody's saying. It's like, it's just wild, like the things that people do for work, and kind of following up on Jackie's point about like different perspectives. It's like makes you realize that there's so many more things going on in the world outside of like even the businesses that exist in your town. Even if there's a lot of different businesses, it's like in a different town, there might be totally different businesses. Like there's some overlap, but there's some that are just totally unique. There's a whole business for backyard chickens or like whatever other random thing. And, there's like, this was a few years ago, there was 30,000 businesses in the US alone that do $1 million a year. That's probably more like 50,000 now. It's like 50,000 businesses. Like those are not all like the things that you would typically think of, like the standard, like sandwich shops. It's like, there's probably so many things that we've never heard of. So I think that's really cool as well. As we start
Josh, I have to say, I think our job is unique in itself. My parents do not understand. They're like, they pay you to do this, make quizzes? Are you playing games all day? Like they don't understand. So just like finding Interact, I thought was a totally unique business in itself. Like I didn't know quizzes could be so effective in marketing, but since I've had the chance of working here and meeting all the customers and seeing how they use quizzes and the results that they're getting, it's fascinating. I mean, before I started here, I never would have thought somebody would be paying for a subscription to build a quiz for their website, for their business.
So true. So true. I don't really talk much about what we do. I'm just like, I work in software.
Marketing,
it's
yeah.
not worth it. Like, I don't want to spend the next hour trying to explain this. But it's fun. It's fun. To switch gears a little bit as we kind of start to wind down here, what would you say are like the drawbacks or difficulties, right? Because like, at least from my view, right, some of these positives could also be potentially hard, like, oh, we're switching all the time, or you have to figure things out all the time. Like from each of your perspectives, like what would you say are some of the key like difficult pieces of being at a company that's bootstrapped, less resources? You can't just be like, oh, we'll roll that up the chain or hire a contractor to do it or whatever.
That's good question.
Yeah, I think exactly what you just said. You can't hide behind a whole bunch of other people and red tape, right? Like at the end of the day, if there's an email in my inbox that's asking for an answer about something that I don't know what to say to, I have to answer it. There's nobody I can blame it on or pass it to, or something like that. So you have to maybe be a little bit scrappy sometimes because you don't have the resources to do certain things. Customers ask all the time for new features, right? We can't afford them sometimes. We don't have enough coming in to spend the resources on building that feature out. As much as we want to help you with it, we just can't. So we have to figure out different workarounds, and that can be challenging sometimes. And sometimes it upsets people, and we're people. I'm a people person. And so I don't want to upset anybody. And so having to figure out, how to help them or say no can be hard. And I think in other businesses, or rather in other funded companies, when you grow to the size of some of, I don't know, my past experience where I was working before, you don't come across that because they have the resources to invest a whole team to figure that one feature thing out, right? And so I guess I would say that that's a drawback, but for me, that's fun. And I guess that goes back to the original question of, is this role or is this type of business for everybody? And no, I don't think it is, because I think a lot of people wouldn't want to have the pressure of having to figure so many different things out so many different times.
I was just going to say that I think that another part of it is, while it's cool that we get to switch gears and pivot all the time, sometimes it's hard not to see a project that you've been working on, like go full term and like get to test it all the way. Like sometimes it feels like the testing time gets cut short, but we pivot because it's better for the customer, it's better whatever. But I would say that sometimes that's a part of it too, is that when you've been working on something, even like as a team, and we're like, so we know that this week, like this is something we're going to do and we're all excited about it, and then we're like, okay, we're going to switch gears a little bit. That can be sometimes like, okay, but then Josh, Annie, everyone always explains so well why we're pivoting and what we're switching to, and all of us kind of just have this like peaceful, like this completely makes sense, and we're holding on to this and it's ready to move on. And so it always like turns out good in the end, but in the moment it's always like, oh my God, this again, like no, like we put a lot of time into this, but you
Yeah.
learn to
Can
like
I
roll with the punches.
Yeah, I want to add to that because I'm Eastern time and mostly everybody else, if not everybody else, is Pacific time, right? And if there is one thing, not at Interact, but in general in the world that I hate doing, it's repeating work that I've already done, right? And so there has been some times where I am on my day, I'm 3 hours ahead of everybody and I do what I'm doing. And then everyone in California wakes up and we're like, okay, we're going to change this thing. And I'm like, but I just spent my whole working day doing this thing that now you guys don't want anymore, right? And so that's me venting, and that can be frustrating, but I totally agree, Jesy, it's always for the better. And I think even when you're in corporate, you do things, or I say corporate, but if you're in a funded startup, same thing, right? Like there's going to be times where you have to do things where maybe the work gets repeated or you did something for no reason kind of thing. So I guess, yeah, just to add to that point, I totally resonate. And the time difference doesn't help. And that's something that's unique to our business. So that's a good one.
Yeah.
I was gonna say,
My
I feel like-
turn.
Oh,
No.
I was just gonna add,
Jackie.
I was gonna add to Jackie's that every time we switch a project, I'm like, oh, but we learned from this project that
Yeah.
maybe we're only like for a month if we were working on. I'm like, okay, but we learned about it. We learned something, and it really helps for the next project or down the line. We're like, no,
Totally.
we tried that. That didn't work. So let's not spend our time on that again. So it's always better.
Yeah, totally
Okay.
agree.
Go ahead, Damaris. Sorry.
No, that's okay. I would like to again divide it between the role and being an employee for all of you listening. The reason I like to do that is because it's different when, when I consider myself front facing, customer facing with people. So it's a different sort of role versus how I feel as an employee and what I have to do. So just for all of you listening, this is why I'm doing this. But as an employee, I would say it's sometimes, as being the newest employee of Interact, starting off.
Not anymore.
Not anymore. Oh, that's true. Never mind. Just kidding, guys. Evan and Graham, you guys are ahead of me now. Adapting for sure, 100%. You have to be able to adapt to changes fast. Sometimes, just as the lady said, that's challenging when you're so concentrated and doing one thing a certain way, and it's like, oh, scrap that, we're not doing that anymore. You're like, oh, okay, just kidding, let me change everything over, right? So that's kind of can be frustrating, but at the same time you have to learn to adjust, you have to learn to adapt, you have to sort of do it quickly. So that could be a challenge for some people. What is it, if you can't take it, you can't make it, right? But if you can take it, you can make it. So you guys will be okay. And then when it comes to the actual role, I'm more in a support sort of tech role currently. There's certain things that sometimes I don't fully understand and know. And so I have to go and research it. I'm like, all right, I have to spend 20, 30 minutes trying to really fully understand the concept. If I really don't understand it, then I'll reach out to my peers and be like, hey, can you just like say this in like just English words, just basic English words, and then I'll translate it into, like techie terms or however the customer's level of understanding. So those are sort of I wouldn't say drawbacks, but challenges more so than anything.
Yeah, I feel all those things. I think Jesy, you put it really well with the switching gears, where I have this recurring thought in my mind of like, I just want to get really good at something one of these days. Like, I wish we didn't have to switch gears so much, because you know, and from our perspective, right, like the reason why we do that, right, is we have this intuitive model after 10 years of like, we just kind of know like this thing's not going to work, like this is not it. And sometimes we have data to back that up and sometimes we don't. And then, you know, we do our very best to try to explain like at least why we're switching, even if, and I think it's actually a good thing, like if you all don't necessarily agree that we should switch, it's like, yeah, you know, you might actually be right. Maybe we shouldn't switch and then we'll come back. But those are like the really hard calls that we have to make sometimes. And then what Jackie, you were saying about like when people get upset, I think that's the flip side of being like close to the customer. This is like an Obama quote, but you know, his view on leadership is you have to make the best choice for the most people at this time. And sometimes that means, you know, like we've even experienced it with the AI stuff. Like there's some people that are not happy with it. They don't, you know, like the AI for whatever reason, or they're not happy with how we're going about it. But the vast majority are really happy because it's getting them to build their quizzes as soon as possible. And they don't have to get stuck in like the nuances of like, how do I write this? Or how do I say this or that or the other thing? So I think that's a prime example in real time of like, it's the drawback of what we all enjoy of working with customers is that sometimes they're not happy with what we do. And sometimes we can't even change the thing that they're not happy about, like the feature thing. It's like, yeah, that's, if we built that, then we couldn't do all these other things that are really important to other people. So we have to make those tough choices. But yeah, I think that kind of wraps up the thoughts that I had and the questions I wanted to ask. Does anybody have any like lingering thoughts or closing statements of wisdom to add in?
I was just thinking that how hard it must be for you guys, like as a CEO and like Matt and everything, to have all these employees who all feel like their department and what they're working on is their baby. And they come to you guys like, we need to do this. This is so important. But someone else is like, no, 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 we need to do this. This is so important. We're all like, no, this matters more. Like that, juggling that is pretty impressive.
Yeah, I mean, that's I think the good thing about our team though is like everyone does feel really strongly about, you know, their ideas and what's going to make the business grow, which, you know, to kind of flip it around, right? Like Matt and I's number one thing, and Ethan feels this way too, our third co-founder, is we always just wanted people to care about what we were working on, you know, the way that we did. And so I think, yeah, it is tough, right? Like to be able to balance, you know, oh, we should really do this thing or we should really do that thing. And you can't please everybody. That's like the number one thing we've learned, but we're more just really grateful that everybody cares as much as they do, because that's what feels meaningful to us.
So cool. No, I think I'll just end it with, you know, I love the team. I love how everybody works together. I love how open the team is, the dialogue that we all have. So it's a very cohesive, amazing environment. Even though it's virtual, we all work from home. We still try our very best to stay connected. So, and you guys do a great job. So positives most of the time.
Yeah, those are my lingering thoughts. I feel really good about the move that I made and working for this team. And I am so happy waking up for work every day. And I could not say that 2 years ago in my last role. And so I guess for anybody who's listening who is in a job, maybe specifically corporate, where this is just not it for them, try a startup. Like look around online for working for a startup, or maybe start your own business. And I think we were talking about this earlier, you will quickly find out if you were made for this style of work or not. But at least then you'll know. And so I didn't know how burnt out, like crispy, extra deep fried I was until I started working in this job, honestly. And once I got away from it and we had this autonomy and I got to work with this team, that's when I was like, okay, this is what I was looking for. But I wouldn't have known that otherwise. So if you are feeling that way, give it a try, because I think that you may be pleasantly surprised.
I'm going to use that next time I'm feeling burnt out. I'm not going to say I'm burnt out. I'm going to say I'm feeling crispy, extra deep fried with no context. What the hell are you talking about?
Next
We'll
time
understand.
someone
Yeah.
asks us to do something and we're just gonna reply, I'm feeling crispy. So
Yep.
Yeah.
probably not right now.
Feeling
This
crispy.
is kind of unrelated, but I have to tell you because it relates to deep frying. So I'm in Egypt right now. I'm in Cairo, and somebody was making no, they eat camel here. Like there are people who eat camels, and but there's also KFC. So the Uber driver that I was with was making a joke. He's like, "Yeah, don't you know what KFC stands for here? Kentucky Fried Camel." But no, it's really chicken.
That is
All right,
actually
that's my
funny.
last thought.
I didn't know they ate
Good.
camels. That's interesting.
I
guess it
haven't
makes
tried it.
sense. It's like a horse.
Apparently apparently the younger the camel, like the more tender the meat, the older the camel, the more tougher the meat. But I haven't tried it, so I can't. This is just a KFC joke that I heard the other day. I haven't actually tasted camel.
Let us know if you try it. Let us know if you try
I
it.
will.
Have you
Report
tried
back.
have you ever and has anyone tried horse sashimi?
No.
It's
Can.
not that good in my experience, but in Japan they have raw horse meat that you can eat. Just really odd.
Oh, I don't know. I
No.
don't know.
No,
Anyways,
thank you.
I guess that's a good way to close it up.
Yeah, perfect.
We'll make that the intro.
And we're done. No, I'm just kidding.
All righty. Well, good chatting with everybody. Thanks for being open and sharing your experiences, and we'll call it there.
All right. Bye, everybody.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye.